because that would help me a ton. Good evening. I am calling to order the August 27th, 2024 Fountain City Council meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Thompson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick.
Here.
Councilmember Hinton.
Here.
Councilmember Applegate.
Here.
Councilmember Estes.
Here.
Councilmember Hertzberg is online with us today. Councilmember Hertzberg.
Here.
Councilmember Duncan notified staff of her absence tonight, so I have 6 members present.
All right, thank you very much. That takes us on to item 4.1, presentations. Fountain Valley Senior Center Director update. Mr. Bowers, please come down to the mic and state your name for the record, and welcome to our meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson and members of City Council. My name is Mark Bowers. I'm the new Executive Director of the Senior Center. I say new and kind of smile about that. I've been there for about 2 years, just haven't made it down here. But I just wanted to go ahead and come down and introduce myself and give you some information about the Senior Center. We survived COVID, thank goodness. And I wanted to give you some information, which I do have handouts that will be given to you afterwards. If you're not familiar with the Senior Center, we are here in the city of Fountain, right behind, tucked in behind H&H Tires and Albert Tacos. Good place to be. But I wanted to give you some figures about the Senior Center. We have over 725 members that are paid members. 25% of those members live in the 80817 area code, and 72% of the members live in the 80817 and 80911 zip code. So out of those members, the bulk of them shop and support the city of Fountain because we're all in the valley. And so the Senior Center provides over 180 hot meals at lunch to the seniors per week. We provide over 200 essential rides to seniors and qualifying individuals weekly. We provide over 30 activities and classes per week for seniors to participate in. We operate a thrift store open to the public that offers high quality and clean household items and clothing at reasonable low prices. Actually, we like to say that we'll beat anything the Goodwill will put out on their shelves as far as quality goes, and also pricing. We offer monthly outings to local and state attractions, along with a yearly trip that we usually take out of state. In October this year, my wife and I will be taking 30 seniors to Branson, Missouri for 5 days. All of those seniors that have signed up for that trip are members of the Fountain Valley area. We have over 50 plus volunteers who give a total of 2,000 plus hours of their time. We coordinate with both School District 3 and District 8 for some intergenerational learning activities. We are members of the Fountain Valley Chamber of Commerce. We have been serving seniors for 49 years in the Fountain Valley area. Next year will be our 50th year. We coordinate with Silver Key Senior Services, Invita Transportation for providing services for seniors in the Pikes Peak area. There is one thing that I would like to bring to your attention. There are several areas, senior services, senior centers across the state of Colorado. The majority of them are tied in with Park and Rec of the city that they are part of. Therefore, there is funding through those cities, through the Park and Rec, for the Senior Center. We are in the city of Fountain. So when we fill out grant applications, one of the questions that is asked is, where does our funding come from? One of the grant applications that I filled out about 6 months ago, the funder contacted me and asked if we received any grants or any funding from the city that we are located in. My answer to them was, no, we didn't. So that plays a very big role in the funding that we receive and the grants that we receive. So what I'd like to do, and the letter that the letter that's going to be handed out to you explains that to you. And what we'd like to ask is if you would consider funding the Senior Center with any funds that you may have that would support the seniors in this area. We have been cut our funding about $65,000 this year for senior funding. That is a huge amount for senior funding, also for a nonprofit. If there is any possible way, we would appreciate any funding that you may be able to provide. Along with the letter that we passed out to you, along with these facts, my business card will be attached to that. If you have any other questions, you may contact Tamara Estes, who is the president of our board, or Todd over here, who is the attorney who sits on our board also. Thank you very much for your time.
Todd's not an attorney, Troy.
Troy. Sorry, not Todd. I get Todd and Troy
We
always
don't, we
mixed
don't
up.
allow insults in the council chambers, right?
Troy. And Troy loves that because he always gets off the hook. But I would appreciate anything, again, and I would welcome you also to come down and visit the center to see what is actually happening down there. Thank you for your time. Please give me a call.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate the update. I know we do provide, Troy's services kind of like in kind. And then I think we did some light poles or something and aren't charging them a fee or something, right, Scott? Yeah, so I know there's some in-kind services coming your way, but I know the grant writers are looking for actual
Yes.
cash. So we will consider that a budget request. How's that?
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, because it's budget season.
And we do provide
everywhere.
them money as well through our transit program.
Oh, that's true, the transit program for the ADA rides, right? Paratransit. Yeah, you provide our paratransit rides. We partner with you on that, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for stopping by. All right. And if anybody wants to donate, he won't turn it down, right?
That is correct.
As long as you fill it out to Fountain Valley Senior Center and not Mark Bowers, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. All righty. That takes us on to the next item. It's Ms. Martinez, the Department Update Development Services, Planning and Engineering. Ms. Martinez.
Thank you. We're actually going to tag team this, so engineering will start their presentation first, and then we'll move into the planning department.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. I'm Ben Sheets, city engineer. Tonight I'm going to give you an update on our engineering department staff and also on the city's capital projects. First slide, please, Bessie. Sorry about that.
Bezzy, could you switch the presentations?
Perfect. Go back one more, Bessie, please. Thanks. Just wanted to start off, first slide, I was going to talk a little more about capital projects, but I just wanted to put this one out there. It's Indiana Improvement Project. It's done. The roadway is open, and we are very excited about that. It's only been, 16, 17 years, but we got it done. So a lot of people were involved in that, and that's, I think, a very good accomplishment. Next slide, please. Regarding our staffing, this is Deputy City Engineer Abba Dwevetti. She's been with us about 8 months now. As you recall, last time I was here about a year ago, we were short-staffed. It was just me and an inspector. So we're very happy to have her here. She's a licensed professional engineer. She has a PhD, a lot of study on asphalt design, which we need desperately for our roadway system, so that's really going to help out. And she has done a lot of capital improvement project management. So she is at the front line of working on the capital projects. Our city inspector, Carl Spengler, he's been with us 3 years. He ensures our water quality inspections and permit compliance. And he's also our public roadway infrastructure inspector. So, next slide, please. Got it. Currently, we're still using a third-party review consultant, Matrix Design Group, that is paid for by the developers. They've been doing a really good job, timely reviews, high quality, and they are professionals, engineers and surveyors. So we're glad to have them working with us. And finally, I was going to say, we have started to enforce what we call quality assurance inspection. Basically, that is a company on our on-call list paid for by the developers that basically verifies everything that the contractors, materials tester, and their work. So they work, they're a contract with us, but paid for the developers, by the developers. And we're very thankful for that. It's helped us a lot, and I think that's really going to extend our roadway infrastructure life. Next slide, please. And I wanted to touch on a couple of accomplishments. We've secured a $235,000 grant by the FHWA. Helps us develop a safety action plan and implement some safety on our roadways. We're really excited to get that, feel very fortunate. It's going to go a long way, and it's the start of the overall plan that we plan on for multimodal transportation and safety. We've also done an inspection and inventory of our ponds. We have 53 ponds in the city of Fountain. Surprising number, a lot of people aren't aware of that. But we've been inspecting them and notifying the private owners that they need to maintain and keep certain standards with those ponds. And finally, our engineering standards manual. Right now, we've adopted the Colorado Springs design criteria. That always doesn't work for the city of Fountain. So what we've done is we're tailoring some specific items, a lot of them related to roadway, pavement design, things like that. And that will be specifically for us, things that we've found to work well. And I think many parties agree that this will again, improve our infrastructure. As far as capital projects, I'm going to turn it over to Abba, and she could give you some information on the status of those, and then we'll take some questions. Abba Duveri.
Before we go on, are there any questions from anybody up here in council? Jennifer?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bessie, next slide, please. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. My presentation here is on CIP projects. As you know, Indiana was designed and constructed to be a quiet zone. It cannot be a quiet zone until we finish West Ohio. So our goal is to complete West Ohio, and following that, both of these crossings will be a quiet zone, and then every quiet zone in the city will be an active quiet zone. For timeline, we know from working with railroad company on Indiana project, it's sometimes hard to follow the schedule, but we are pushing for a solid completion by 2025. It can, however, go into 2026. Next slide, please. Carson and US 8587, this is an active construction project. This was started on August 12th, and if SEMA Construction follows their schedule, it should be completed by the first quarter of 2025. Construction cost is anticipated to be $2.6 million. This is a moving Fountain Forward project and fully funded by CDOT. This intersection is designed as a green T intersection, very similar to the one on Peterson, right outside Peterson. We did hold a community meeting to go over the project highlights on July 31st. Next slide, please. Jimmy Camp and Ohio traffic signal, again, is a moving Fountain Forward project. This intersection was designed to alleviate congestion and help with school rush hour traffic. Unfortunately, the property owner on the northwest side passed away, which impacted our schedule. However, we are working on property acquisitions. Hopefully, once they are completed, we will take this project out to bid. Tentative construction cost is between $300,000 to $400,000, of which School District 8 is going to be contributing $120,000. And that is all I have for updates. Any questions?
Anybody from council have any questions? Jennifer? So
No, thank you.
I've had a lot of people ask me about Ohio, right? Because Ohio appears to be done. And as we were working on Indiana, I think the train change the standards for the quiet zone that has yet to be approved on Ohio. Is that correct?
That is Ohio East.
Oh, okay.
Ohio East is an existing quiet zone. There are certain remedy actions that we need to take because as it gets older, we need to bring the median height up. But for West Ohio, it's going to be a brand new. So we are working with Railroad on diagnostic analysis. They're going to come, do an inspection, provide us a cost estimate, how much it's going to be. And once West Ohio is completed, Indiana is already constructed as a quiet zone. So it's going to Indiana is going to be followed into a quiet zone right after West Ohio.
And we're at the mercy of the trains, right? We're
I'm-
just we're at the mercy of
Yes,
the railroads.
but however, we don't expect any massive improvements on West Ohio.
But as far as the timeline, though, there's nothing we can do to bump that timeline by. We're just at their mercy.
Correct.
Okay. Councilmember Hinton?
Yeah, I just want to add to that too, Mayor, because I got a lot of questions about people who feel like they were duped when this came in and the quiet zone didn't happen, like what happened to that. So I just want to remind people that it is the railroad who makes that determination when that happens, and we are working with them. As they will always tell you, they'll tell you like this: we were here before you were. And so just so you know, we're trying to do our best to work with them, but that's just what we're dealing with right now.
Right. And I also want to mention, although it will be a quiet zone, but at the discretion of Railroad, they can still blow their horns.
Yeah.
Especially at 2 a.m., right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also was a save-up tax, so it took us a while to save up the money to be able to get started on it. And did you have something, Todd?
Real quickly, just for those of you that have been aware and have been involved in our budget process, kudos go to Ben and Abba. They saved us money on the Indiana project, which is allowing us to fund these with moving Fountain Forward money. If they hadn't done that and really kept their nose to the grind on saving money in the contractor and those type of things, we wouldn't be able to do this. So kudos to them that we're using those moving Fountain Forward funds on these rather than spending it all on Indiana. They've done a great job with that.
Right. And I want to really give another shout of appreciation out to CDOT on that Carson 85 project. It was 2 years ago, that wasn't even in their budget or on their site. I went to a breakfast meeting with some CDOT people, and I said, you know, we got a road in the river, and it's cutting a community in half, and they were able to help us find some dollars with Todd and everybody working together, getting it, and find some dollars that aren't in the normal CDOT budget. It's whatever they put in this other pot in, and you guys jumped right on it and got that done. And so in CDOT, the world, to have a project go from 18 months, nothing, to where we're at today, which is much larger than I anticipated, right? The amount of dirt work that's going on up there is absolutely speed of light in the CDOT world. So, yeah, but thank you so much for that. Appreciate that hard work. Any questions, anybody up here? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are you staying over there?
I'm going to stay over here, yes.
Okay.
So good evening, I'm Christy Martinez with the City of Fountain Planning Department. And similar to engineering, I'm going to start with staffing updates. So when we're fully staffed within the planning department, we would consist of 4 full-time employees. It would be a planning tech, a planner 1/planner 2, and a senior planner. Currently, we're operating with 1 full-time staff member, me. So over the past year and a half to 2 years, the city has actively been posting and advertising these vacancies. We're not getting qualified candidates. We have increased the salaries for both of those positions in order to attract more qualified candidates in the region. It brought our salary compensations up to regionally what El Paso County generally markets their vacancies for. And we still have not been able to get qualified candidates. We have now onboarded a staff recruiter, not a city staff member, but a recruiting agency to help fill these difficult positions to fill due to the lack of the qualified applicants that we've received. A lot of the feedback that they have received is, again, from these potential candidates that our compensation is just too low compared to their current positions in order to consider moving forward. doing a little bit more research into where we are coming from all of this, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics anticipate that there's approximately 3,700 vacancies in the planning and urban regional planning career field nationally each year. So as more baby boomers retire, more people are not going into this type of a career field, leaving a bigger vacancy gap. They've cited a lot of the vacancies due to workers transitioning from the planning and urban regional planning fields into other different complete occupations altogether. We ourselves are not even immune from that. We've had a senior planner who had left our department a while ago to leave the field primarily due to some of the public harassment that they had been receiving. It was so extensive in that type of harassment via social media, phone calls, emails, signage throughout the community that we had to involve the police department in some of those complaints. So we understand that it's a difficult field to be in and it's a difficult field to recruit. Even with all of that, the development in this community hasn't slowed down. So with a department of one, we currently have 53 active projects that are currently in some stage of the review process. Within the last 8 months, we have approved 160 plot plans, so that could be sheds, decks, garages, which also includes 60 new single-family detached homes. And we've also approved 8 new 8 commercial business operations within the city. Of the 53 projects that are currently under review, 28 of those are also new business commercial operations coming into the city of Fountain. We're also looking at about 3,500 new dwelling units that are planned for future development within the city. We average about 25 to 50 phone calls a week. So think about how much time you may be spending on the phone for any type of a business call, multiply that by 25 to 50 with a staff of 1. That is a significant amount of time that is spent on the phones. That is not then being dedicated to project review, trying to address comments and concerns from the general public that comes in addition to the hundreds of emails that I personally receive a week. We're tasked with enforcing the codes that is adopted by you all. We go to great lengths during the pre-application meetings, over the phone, and email to outline development rules and regulations for folks so that they fully understand what that path is moving forward. And unfortunately, sometimes the answer is still no. A lot of folks will receive the DRT summary notes, which is a pre-step before they make a formal submittal to the city, where various staff and agencies and departments throughout the city sit down, outline all of the rules and regulations so that they, as the applicant, have all that information moving forward. And oftentimes we see that they disregard that information and make the assumption that the rules don't apply to them. So then they are upset when they make their submittal and they receive the review comments and it's deficient and it's missing information and we're outlining all the rules and regulations. It's not uncommon for folks in those positions to then get 5 to 10 emails a day on any particular project. So when you hear throughout the business community that we're difficult to work with, we hold people accountable, we're unresponsive, it all goes back to the staffing level. I'm one person, and I can only do so much within that week. It's not uncommon for folks to receive emails from me after 6, 7 o'clock at night. It's not uncommon for folks to see me working on a Saturday or a Sunday. It's really difficult to maintain all the balls that need to go up into the air with the project reviews, public hearings, project inspections, and still get through just the day-to-day tasks with all of that. So we do rely heavily on the support of Todd Evans, who is the Deputy City Manager who oversees both the planning and engineering and public works, to help field some of those phone calls so that I can dedicate my time to those project reviews. And he can attest the amount of time that he himself has dedicated to answering public questions. Did I miss anything on that one, Todd? Okay. We do see a lot of the growth coming in along the Mesa Ridge Syracuse area, so kind of south of the Mesa Ridge High School. That's where the new King Soopers is breaking ground, in addition to the various pad sites and out parcels that are going in there. We have a lot of commercial development focused in that area. We also have commercial development occurring up at the South Academy Highlands, so up at Venatucci and South Academy. We have the pad sites going in there along the west side, and we also have Phase 2, which is on the north side of the Sam's Club that is coming online with some more retail development. Even with the city's current restrictions on treated water capacity within our own water service area, the growth hasn't slowed down. As many have seen, the northern portion of El Paso County has pretty much built out. That has been the primary focus for new development within El Paso County over the last 10 to 15 years. Well, now folks are looking for where is the cheapest dirt and where can they develop? And that is down south, and that is hitting us directly today. We field business inquiries between the planning department, engineering, and the water department daily on new development that wants to come in. And we're really having to evaluate our water capacity, who's their water provider, because Widefield and Security are not immune to the treated water capacity limitations that they are facing as well. But the development hasn't stopped, despite everything that we have heard, the economy, the slowdown, prices of land, infrastructure costs that we've seen firsthand from the city. People are still out looking to develop and looking to grow. So even with all of those limitations in place, Fountain is still continuing to grow. Are there any questions for me?
Before I go to the questions on my right and my left, I kind of got in a conversation, just kind of overhearing, walking around City Hall last week. Someone just walks in and they go, I want to put this on my property. They walk in and they say, I just want to put this on my property, right? And Sandy's running back and forth between the front and you, right? Trying to keep you at your desk, trying to keep you working. And your answer would come back, and she would very graciously hand it to him and go over it with him. And he would come back and say, I just want to build this. So she'd go back and ask you another question. And I heard him say 3 or 4 times, but I just want to build this. Now, I left before his question got answered, but that's not being difficult to work with. I'm imagining the conversation, because I didn't see the note, but I'm imagining it going back and forth saying, I need you to bring me a drawing in, right? So if you want to put a shed or a deck or something on your property, you need them to come in at your house, right? You don't want to hire an engineer till you find out, or an architect, what you're doing. You need them to kind of come in with a drawing of where their house is, what they want to do, what the sizes are. That would really be helpful, right? So you have kind of an idea of just saying, of course you can build whatever you want on your property, right? Because they might want to put it right on top of utility lines or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do have to give a huge shout out to the city clerk's office and Sandy and Joe and Joni as being the first line of, lack of a better word, defense, and to trying to field a lot of those phone calls, pull out as much information so that we're not going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And sometimes I'm in the middle of a conference call and I'm putting one conference call on hold or mute to answer the questions of folks at the front desk because I can't split my time between two different places. So they really do as much of that legwork to try to get as much information up front so that we can give a definitive answer and not have to come back multiple times.
Right. So the more they can come in with their drawing, just a hand drawing on a napkin, we don't care, right? Just give us an idea. I want to put a 10 by 8 deck or 10 by 10 or 5 by 10 or whatever, and this is where I want to put it, and then you can pull up their property and be patient. They might not be able to stop. Like you said, you're only one of you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Councilmember
It's fine.
Hinton.
It's fine, Brett's fine. So this is probably a question for Troy. I hear a lot of people saying we're not business friendly, and that comes with that, right? And then I also hear we're developing too fast, we need to stop people. It's legally, I just want to kind of get that legal aspect out there. Can we stop people from developing?
And
Commercial development.
yeah, realistically, there's not a lot we can do to prevent growth like that. We can enforce our codes, and that's what we do when applications come in. And we can't give what we don't have either in terms of infrastructure, and enforcing the development to, as everyone says, pay their own way. And so a lot of that, a lot of the timing of it, the cost of it, and some of so what they might call hoops to jump through can be difficult, right? But that's how the council's created the code, and how that we've decided to hold the standards that we have. And so there's nothing that we can do legally to imprint and say, no more growth, right? We can't do that because these are people's properties. All we can do is enforce the laws that we have. And that's what we as a staff try to do.
For sure. Thank you for explaining that. I mean, we do have a lot of projects in the pipeline, and they're continuing to come. As Christy said, people are moving south because it is some cheap land. But I do appreciate you guys being the watchmen on the tower. There are lots of people that want to come in and do lots of crazy things, and develop in certain areas that probably are not responsible for our citizens and fiscally not responsible for them. And so I really appreciate you guys doing the best that you can in that.
And before I get to you, Gordon, you used a term DRT.
It's a pre-application meeting, so it's before anybody spends any significant amount of money before they purchase a property. They sit down with planning, engineering, water, electric, fire, public safety, any of the communications, so fiber, telephone, things like that, to outline any infrastructure upgrades or requirements that they're going to have to do. So they go into that project eyes wide open and know exactly what they're getting into, and there aren't any surprises.
So best piece of advice before somebody buys a piece of property, I'm always telling people, call our planning department, call and find out the history of the property, find out what upgrades you might have to do, and find out what some things that have, and get those inspections, because things might have been done that weren't done up to code, and now you're responsible for bringing them up to code.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Rick?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Evans, how many, we were talking earlier this week, how many businesses have currently expressed an interest in coming into Fountain, and approximately how many jobs does that equate to?
So with those 28 that Christy mentioned, we've got other locations that are building out locations for businesses as well. So think north of the McDonald's up off of Mesa Ridge. There's going to be a little strip mall in there with 4 more locations. We've got another one coming in at Cross Creek. I'm trying to think of the cross right there that goes into Heritage, but where the church used to be. That's another 4 or 5 pad sites, Christy. So when you start putting the multiplication together, and just the King Supers itself is a couple of 100 jobs. So the discussions that Kimberly's doing a great job on, I think Kimberly's here, but when folks say yes, when folks say we're unbusiness friendly, the 28 to 35 that we've got coming in, we're at capacity. We couldn't handle, but I get calls weekly. So just what we've got on the table, we're looking at somewhere between 750 and 1,000 new jobs coming in.
Thank you.
And we're still getting calls literally weekly. I get a couple of calls from others that want to come in.
Okay. Christy, Ms. Martinez, from me personally, thank you for all of your hard work. Thank you for the job you are doing. I can appreciate the situation you're in and just want to say thanks.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Finally, I want to talk about our city charter. For those of you who aren't familiar, our city charter was written by residents of Fountain. It was voted on by the citizens of Fountain and passed by the city of, by those voters. And I want to read you what it says under the rights and responsibilities of the city council. And it starts off with, the council shall have the authority to enact and provide the enforcement of all ordinances necessary to protect life, health, and property. That is the first sentence on what the city council is responsible for. There's a whole lot of other things that goes on here. Prevent and summarily abate and remove nuisances, establish, preserve, finance, and enforce good government, et cetera, et cetera. Nowhere in there in our charter does it say that the city council is responsible for making it easy for business to come into Fountain. The first responsibility is the lives, the safety, the health, and the property of our residents. And when we make these ordinances for development, that is the first thing we're keeping in mind, making sure everybody stays alive, stays safe, stays healthy. I realize it is difficult sometimes for businesses to look at things from a health and safety standpoint, but it's what we have to do in order to make sure we protect people in Fountain. That's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Applegate.
Yeah, a couple questions. So I see here that Ant Bank, they're set to build here on the corner. Don't they have a location just to the north of that? Are they moving, or is that a second location?
It's my understanding they're moving their operations to a larger facility.
Moving their operations to a larger facility, okay. And then maybe this is a question for Todd, just so we have it on the record. There's a little section there, Integrity Bank, 90 acres, and that's in county, but it's surrounded by all city. When do we expect them to kind of, like, you said that there was something they were thinking about making a move on that, but they weren't sure?
So that property falls under the water restrictions that we've got, but part of that'll be in front of you here in a few weeks on the water adequacy is any developer, whether it be somebody as large as Amara or that, must bring their water with them, so it doesn't impact our current residents. So right now, we're working with them on a possible concept, and they have moved forward with putting money into that project to see if they can bring and create that water that they would need. So they're still looking at large lots there, not high density, but the larger lots. And at the pace they're going, I would expect to see something first quarter of next year if they're successful in their water.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Christie.
Councilmember Hinton.
This is for Todd. I'm sure we get questions as soon as this meeting's over about water. Like, if we're complaining about water, how are we bringing these commercial business? That's what I hear. We're like, we're the city of Fountain, we don't have water. But can you just explain to the residents that how we are, those taps are divided up?
Absolutely. So what we did when back, Taylor, about 3 years ago, I think, is when we started on the water. At that point, Taylor did a great job working with Christie, as well as with staff, but we have now identified every available tap that's in the city. So in these commercial areas, those were identified as commercial areas, and those taps were set aside so that we could build those out. So those were already accounted for in our existing tap count. So when folks act that, we don't change that count, but we knew those were there. And a lot of these that are now coming to fruition that Kimberly's been working on, she's been working with a lot of these companies for those 3 years. So now we're just starting to see them to come into fruition. But we've got a list, and every available tap is accounted for at this point.
Awesome. Thank you, Todd. I appreciate it.
Mr. Todd.
Yes.
We're giving Christie a break since
We
she's
are.
the only one down
She
there. We're giving
deserves
her a
it.
break.
She's one of one, as Taylor Swift would say.
So I think we had a really good example recently with our neighbors to the north that we always, our citizens have said for years, growth needs to pay its own way. And we do that in a certain amount of ways, and then the developers or people wanting to come in, they complain because Fountain's difficult to deal with.
Yes,
Then they
do.
go up to Colorado Springs, then they come down here and they complain that Colorado Springs is difficult to deal with. And they go to
Yes.
the county and they say, we're both difficult to deal with. So it's just part of the route, we know it's part of what goes on.
Correct.
However, some of the things we were really concerned about in that Amara development was the fact that the neighbors to the north were not asking Amara to pay their way. They were going to put what was called a rider, basically an extra amount of money on your bill every month.
Correct.
For over 10 years, going anywhere from a few dollars per month up to $10 to $8 per month, and they would have seen that going on this month in their bill if they had approved that. That's one way we've committed to not, and that's every citizen in the city of up north would have paid that rider, whether they ever even drove down here to visit what was going on, right? To
Every
pay-
citizen and business, correct?
Every citizen and
Church,
business.
school, everything, yes,
Yeah, and for commercial properties, it was a lot higher than that. That was the residential rates.
correct.
We don't do that.
That's
We
correct.
were also asked, we ask certain things on our streets, we have a safety tax fee, and those things all add up to more money to the developer to develop down here, but those are ways that we are protecting our citizens to make growth pay its way. Is that fair to say?
That's correct, and Mayor, having attended nearly all of the city council meetings up there and planning commissions about Amara to be able to answer questions, I got a lot of comments from citizens up there commending us for how we deal with things and doing exactly what you just explained.
Okay, and I don't think we understand that or talk about it a lot. We just kind of quietly do it.
Correct.
Right.
And it really became real for the citizens up there, businesses, schools, everything else, when that rider was brought forward to actually explain to those folks what those costs were going to be, and that's when you saw the vote turn.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for holding the line, and it's tough.
You bet.
And if you got questions, call up and ask. Just
bet.
leave the four-letter words at home.
You know, one thing I'd like to just let everybody know, and the folks that are here as well as council, some of you may not be aware of this, but Christy Martinez, I've worked with a lot of investigators through my career, and she is one of those individuals with the highest character and integrity that does hold the line on the codes and zoning that past councils and this councils have determined are the rules of the city. And just to give you an example of just her mental toughness, earlier this year, in one incident, I won't explain, Christy, how it occurred, but she was helping her husband on the ice and broke her arm and her ankle at the same time. And if I recall, I don't think she missed a day of work. She went to her doctor's appointments, but she did not miss a day of work. Primarily because she knew what she had on her plate, and she's that dedicated to the city and to her job and her profession, and there's not many people tougher than that out there in the world. So in the NFL, that would have kept people out for 2 seasons. So she was here handling her business, so I commend her. She does hold the line, and she truly does follow the rules that councils have laid down for the city. So it's my pleasure to work with her. And I appreciate your comments that you directed towards Christy as well. It's appreciated.
But we don't want people at the same time. We don't want people at the same time to get the impression that it's not okay to come in and ask questions, right? Because that's how things get changed.
Yeah,
That's how we
absolutely.
re-examine things.
100%.
You know, we can re-examine your particular situation if you're
Absolutely.
frustrated with it. I remember the guy that came in recently with the electrical upgrade, and we were able to figure that out, and it didn't end up costing him nearly as much money as
100%.
he thought it was going to
Please
cost.
continue to do that.
Yeah.
If you see anyone, let's say online, I know a lot of these conversations don't occur online, but if you do, have them reach out to me. I'm happy to help them. I'm happy to take those calls for Christy so she can stay focused on what she does. We will think outside the box. And if something's doable to help somebody, we always make sure we do that. I think those that have dealt with us understand that. But always do as the mayor always does, hand out my name and phone number and have them give me a call.
That
or my
Evans
email.
at fountaincolorado.org?
That's
that one?
right.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
right.
Councilmember Hinton.
And just as we're on Chrissy, she is a hard charger. I mean, she probably should have to have surgery again on that ankle. She wears around like, it looks like a DUI bracelet, and I thought she was in trouble. I was like, what is this bracelet on her ankle? But it's a bracelet on her ankle to give her the electric stimulation. But if it was me, I'd probably be out for a while. But she continues to work forward through all that and through all the hurts and the pains, and I really do appreciate you. So thank you for everything you do. And that's not just only for Christy, but that's for all of our staff. I mean, they go above and beyond a lot of the things that we asked them to do, and I know that they spend a lot of hours here. I'm here on Tuesdays and some other days, but they spend a lot of their time away from their family. They sacrifice a lot of their personal time, so I appreciate it on the behalf of the fountain residents, so I appreciate that.
Thank you, Fred. We appreciate it.
Right.
Madam
Last
Mayor?
last
Somebody
example
said
I'm going to give real quick.
Jennifer, Councilmember
Jennifer's got some?
Hertzberg?
Yes.
The last
Okay.
example I'll give real quick is just an example. City of Monument has gone through 5 Christies, 5 planning managers in the last 2 years. 5. Very tough job. So, tough lady, kudos to you, but it's a great example. They had to put a moratorium on any projects coming in for 6 months because they did not have a planning staff.
Councilmember Hertzberg?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, of course, I want to echo the comments of appreciation to Christy and the planning staff and the leadership of Todd. Of course, we want to do everything that we can to place hedges of protection around the staff. That's so important. You know, they can wear out, they can burn out, and that's the last thing we want to happen. And I was just wondering, this may be a question for Todd or Christy, I'm not sure, but if within the planning industry, are they doing anything to incentivize young folks towards these programs? And then secondly, are there any forward thoughts about automation, AI, anything like that that could sort of take care of some of the lower lying fruit?
So I'm not sure if there's any incentives to bring the younger generations and have them pursue that career field. Architecture is a huge career field that a lot of folks get into. Planning field gets into it a lot. They see the big picture idea, and the reality is a lot of us actually end up in a cubicle working for a local municipality, a government entity of some sort. So the glorified version of what we see in college is not what's executed in real life, and so I think the expectations almost need to be set a little bit more realistically. In terms of AI can be a useful tool to a certain degree, but they can't get into the unique details of each lot. So each person's lot in the community is not the same as their neighbor. So it can do some of that, but to actually do that physical review would still require a real person.
Okay, and we've done a bit of outsourcing, I believe. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, so we have actually retained a third-party reviewer, similar to what Ben Sheets with engineering had mentioned, how they utilize Matrix Design Group. We are utilizing a smaller outfit who has employed actually a former employee from here, so they are familiar with our rules, our regulations, the community in general, to help with some of the backlog of those 53 applications in order to try to keep those applications moving through the process as quickly as possible. It's not a long-term solution, but it's certainly a Band-Aid patch for the foreseeable future.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you.
I will say, when I was up at a meeting at the state, and they are talking about a lot about affordable and attainable housing and densities and things, one of the things they were trying to do was to pass a bill last year to make tighter timelines, right? Force things through faster. They want to see all this stuff done faster, and waited till everybody in the meeting did their presentations. Then I raised them. They asked if they had any questions, and I'm so shy, you know. So raised my hand, and I said, those are all really great aspirations, but we can't find the people to do the work. The state needs to back up and take a step. They need to go to the community colleges and the state colleges and make some 2-year programs for certification for people in the different plan levels, and have them start doing some of their internship work in the cities and municipalities to get an idea what's going on before you start bringing all these requirements down to us. And it's not only in buildings, but it's in landscaping and things like that. There just aren't ways to get it done and the people to do the planning. And these people looked at me like I had fallen off the rocks out front, because I dared to say, well, that's a great idea, but don't force it down our throats if we can't get the people to do the job to get it done. And then you start penalizing us for not getting things done. So, and they agreed there was a problem, but that was about it. That's all they did was agree. So I think the more we can be the squeaky wheel and keep bringing those things forward, that's great, but you need to do this first step first. You need to get an educated workforce, and an educated workforce is going to, be worth more, and monetarily they'll get paid more, but the state's going to need to step in and help with some of that, some of those costs, I believe. So, all right, anybody else up here? Did you have something? Oh, you reached out, so.
No, last is I'd like to let everybody know, every project you see up there, all 53, engineering went over their capital projects tonight, but they're also involved in every one of those 53 projects going through the city.
Thank you. Okay. All righty, that takes us on to the next item, Wayfaring Plan and Design Phase 2 launch. Kristen, Michael, and Kimberly, I'm not sure who else, okay, Nate, who else? Yes, okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilmember. Development team, can everyone hear me? There we go. I will start over again. My name is Nate Schull, City of Fountain Economic Development Specialist. I am here with our team, our consultant team tonight, to address to you the discussion regarding the subject of the wayfinding signage system plan, which was brought back to you in February of this year. Today, we're really going to be just doing a high-level overview of the phases of work that have occurred since we launched this initiative, back from phase 1 in February through June, and we are approaching phase 2, actually began phase 2 in June, which is really more towards the preliminary design ideas of this program. So, next slide, please. Just a quick review. Back in February, as mentioned, we as staff requested the adoption of an amendment to the 2022-2024 strategic plan, which requested that the Economic Development Department ultimately adopted would complete a study and publish of the wayfinding signage system plan, which helps with directional awareness in the community, specifically along Highway 85-87 corridor, which helps to increase communities' points of interest, but also improve upon the infrastructure of the community. Signs themselves are infrastructure. The presentation prior was perhaps very timely because we just discussed the high growth activity in our community. Just as an emphasis, 34% of growth rate has occurred since 2007, increasing our population by roughly 10,000 individuals. This also includes a continuous growth in our commercial district corridors. And then roughly 57% of the off-base military population inhabits and frequents many of the transportation corridors in our community. So there is definitely an emphasis on the transient and visitor population to our community for needed awareness around district and community wayfinding points. Next slide, please. So just again, a quick map on the right. This is created by our consultant, and it references the 6 business corridors in our community, which are all highlighted in various colors. And we have included each of those corridors within the emphasis of the plan. The exception areas are South Academy Highlands, which it's not shown on the map, it is to the north, as well as Pikes Peak International Raceway, and then any future urban growth areas. These are areas which would adopt the signage standards upon their considered adaptation and implementation into the community at the appropriate time. Next slide. All right, at this time, I will introduce our consultant, our main consultant, Kristen Seifer, who's going to share with you some background on our Phase 1 portion of the project.
Welcome back, Kristen. And I want to give you a compliment. I was on a meeting at Fort Carson, and I was speaking with, I think, General Hodney's wife, and she was so excited to see that you guys had a spot out at Fort Carson that you were collecting information from. They felt it was very welcoming to the community, and they felt they gave a brand-new perspective because they were people who were new to the community and were trying right at that moment to figure out their way to get themselves around. And I thought that was really outside-the-box thinking to go on to Fort Carson and to gather some information directly from them. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Both Nate and I participated in those events at the fort, and we did hear different things. So we rolled that into our background research and information gathering. So as you can see, we have 3 phases for this project. We have ended Phase 1, and we're pivoting into Phase 2. So Phase 2 is preliminary design, and what I want to share tonight is just the information that fed into that process of beginning to actually develop the sign ideas. And we'll be going out to the public on Labor Day with the first event. The Labor Day event will be attending that, and that will be the unveiling of the design options so that people can give us their feedback. So we're pretty excited to be at this pivot point, and we just want to keep you in the know in regard to how we got there. So next slide, please. One of the things that we did is pretty extensive background research and info gathering. So we have a summary booklet of all this information, but we looked at your existing signs, of course. What are the opportunities and what are the things that we can help solve with the signage project? So overall, you know, if you look across this palette, unification of the signage so that everyone knows when they're in Fountain was very important. Also, looking at the resiliency of materiality here, we certainly heard from the community that they want resilient signs that don't require a lot of maintenance. So there are some issues with some of the signs now, just in regard to how easy they are to maintain and update as needed. But the big takeaway was quantity. So typically, you know, we remove signs as new signs come up, and that makes sense. But in regard to just the number of signs that we need to help people find things in Fountain, you're really only at 10% of what you need. So I don't want to be like signs, but very simple signs that help people navigate the community so that they're aware of the extent of the area that is Fountain. So Fountain has both the pleasure and the difficulty of being largely along a very long corridor. And people certainly, what we've heard from the public is they give up. They say, oh, we've gone to the regional park, like that must be the end of Fountain, or fill in the blank. Everyone had a little bit different end, but hardly any of them ended with Old Town. So the people who've been here a very long time, of course, knew about Old Town, but everyone else was very confused. Mostly because you do have new residents coming into town. 10,000 people is a lot of folks. And the military being I hate to say transient, but the rollover of military families and staff and serving members means that they're all newbies, and they're all newbies every year. There's newbies. And they have a very short time to get oriented to the community and find things that especially families would like to participate in. So parks are a big thing, grocery stores are a big thing. The Old Town experience, it was delightful to see the shop open in Old Town because so many folks were like, we just need like a place to take our kids after we go to the library or after school, et cetera, et cetera. So trying to promote growth with the signage is important. And the first goal of that, after all of this research and deliberation, just looking at the physical signs, really led us to, you need more signs, which is probably not a surprise. You offered this project because you were aware of a problem. So our goal is to, of course, unify, but also to add to, and at the same time, take down. The last thing we want are signs that are artifacts of old signage that just add to confusion for the public. So when we move into phase 3 with recommendations, we're definitely looking at a phasing program that allows us to elegantly take away what is needed as new things go up. Okay, next slide. So our outreach, this was a delight on 2 levels. First, we got to go to a lot of unique places in Fountain and get a different perspective from folks, which was really great. I will say that the majority of those opinions were the same. There's a lot of continuity in at least the people that we outreached with. They had a lot of the same concerns or confusion points. Like often we would meet with folks as part of an outreach booth, and they would be quite confused about what was Fountain and what wasn't Fountain. So if you're thinking about the military people or a newbie, they just had no idea. They didn't know Metcalf Park existed. They didn't know the trail system existed. They were confused thinking that Mesa Ridge was its own community. So it was just a lot of, murky. And, Fountain is a proud community, and we certainly heard that as well. So getting people, especially to some of those touchstone heart places in the community, like the Old Town, and some of the beautiful parks, the folks who lived here for a long time were very interested in getting that done. And the economic development piece is always at the back of our minds. So just, again, letting them know that, this isn't the end. There's more economic development. There's more places to go to purchase things, to have a dinner, to have a coffee. Okay, and so, the facts really speak to the number of, let's say the way people like to be heard in Fountain, which is one-on-one, face-to-face. You're really hearing me, you're writing down what I've told you, and here are my comments. So you can see that we had 450 postcards distributed, but we had 380 and more. They just keep going, so people will email you after the fact. Those one-on-one conversations were just invaluable. So a lot of data to go through, but again, the consistency was really helpful, and also just the feeling that we're really listening. That was one of the tenets of our promise to the City of Fountain when we started the project. So yeah, and those in-the-field locations were also really fun. I particularly liked the Easter egg hunt. Okay, so next slide, please. So just a sampling. Again, we had 380 comments, so this was a lot to go through, and we tried to pick the ones that represented the biggest themes. So the biggest themes are, I don't know the extent of Fountain. I don't know where to find things in Fountain, even if I do know the extent of Fountain. And the legibility of what we've got up. So, signs are one of those things that get put up as a need arises, and so they kind of start accumulating, and because of that, they don't all look very consistent, and there's different standards for different things. So, for better or for worse, we're working with CDOT along 85, 87, and Pepper, who is our person on the steering committee, is wonderful. And CDOT has upped their standards for things like text height, we're an aging population, so that legibility piece is really important, and then the location too. And that's one of the things that we definitely are considering now that we're locating signs and thinking about that, is just making sure they're not being obstructed by anything. In this, again, these are big themes, but behind this is our conversations where people are very sincerely committed to making Fountain better. I usually expect a couple comments of, we don't need signs. But in Fountain, it was more like, we need signs, but they have to be budget, conscious. It's a small community in regard to budget, and we need to be thoughtful about that. But the need for signs was very well established. And also just to hear one-on-one the confusion that people have and what it's around. And it's largely just, where does it end and where am I in it? And is Mesa Ridge Fountain, or is that a different community embedded in Fountain? I just felt so horrible for that one. And then, we'd really like to have signs that show visitors, especially where they can stop, because a lot of people just drive through on 85, 87. Next slide, please. So when we had our community survey, and we rolled those conversations into this data as well. So these are rated according to, number one was the most important, and then as you get to the bottom, we'll see less important things. So, the types of signage that would be most helpful are the vehicular navigation signs 100%. And those are the ones that you do not have enough of. You need more vehicular navigation signs. So, if you think about even the intersection leading up to Mesa Ridge, if you are on 85, you are missing a giant opportunity by not turning and, frequenting all the assets along Mesa Ridge. And honestly, the parks, which people adore and value so strongly, are hard to find. They definitely can't find a lot of, especially the charming smaller parks, just no awareness of where those are. And certainly, especially military families said that those were really important, because often you move with your entire family, even if you are the only one serving. So the rest of them are looking for things to do, things to grow. Awareness around not just Fountain, but like a growing set of kiddos that are looking for things that would help them understand how to move their bodies. There's a critical window for that. And then the following sign goals in order of importance was legibility, more than anything. And that makes sense. We're doing signs. They should be legible. That's my first priority too. But just the fact that there's some confusion around the signage right now. They're not really sure what it's trying to say to them, and especially with vehicular navigation signs that look different, or gateway signs that look different, or lack of there's gateways kind of all along 85 to different parts of Fountain, and a number of people said that it would be really helpful to understand those sort of character areas like Nate showed on the map. Next sign, please. And then the survey trends also, this was great because this was just down the center, exactly how people express their needs for the signage across every conversation, across every survey. They need to be easily updated. You're a growing community. We need to be able to either, take off, replace for existing signs, or as you start to annex in other, the urban growth boundary areas especially needs to be incorporated into this, as well as private development signage. So if you're going to do a multi-tenant sign, we'd like to start to move those into a consistent palette so that you can have your tenants, but there's a piece of it that's like City of Fountain. You're in Fountain right now. If you're going to Safeway, you're in Fountain. Then the history, culture, and character, again, that was mostly from a long-term population, but also curiosity about folks that were moving in or haven't been here very long. And I found that really interesting. They wanted to feel like they were a part of a place, even if they're only here for 2 or 3 years. And I thought that was a wonderful thing to take forward into the design. Colorful and eye-catching is more, I can just read it. It really goes back to legibility. There's a lot along Highway 85, 87 especially to see, and they want to make sure that they can see it. And then the rest of them, we're really looking at the designs themselves just being robust, again, with using metal and potential for illumination. Since you do own your power, there's a cost savings there that we could utilize, especially for gateway type signs. And then moving or interactive elements, I have never figured out that comment, but I interpret it not just as kinetic, but also that interchangeability so that we can like update them as needed. And cost, yeah, cost. All these elements that they picked were due to durability, and we heard that verbally from folks again and again. Next slide, please. And then we have a steering committee that is our right-hand group throughout this process. So as we got into thinking about the sign types that are needed for each district, and you can see those across the top. There's, you know, it ranges from vehicular to ped, to informational, trail, etc. There's quite a few options that would help you guys. So we looked at each character area and came up with a shorthand for what we should focus on for those locations. So if you look at Old Town, you can see almost every X is checked because that's where we expect people to be walking, looking for information. It also provides incredible connections to the trail system and parks. So Old Town's really the focus, but you can see throughout the districts, they have somewhat different needs, but a lot of commonalities as well. Okay, next slide, please. So as we pivot into phase 2, we're looking for input. So when we do these design options, what we want is to know what you like. It's a simple binary choice at first, like A or B, and then we have the ability to comment on that both in the survey and at the input station. So we'll be having these banners all around town. Next slide, please. You can see a little bit more about, oh yeah, and the signage elements. Sorry, I should have put this next to the other one, but this is what we worked with the steering committee to develop. Like, okay, we're in Old Town. What are some of the things that we could consider doing from a signage perspective that would really, you know, emphasize both the experience of being there and moreover make it a lot more legible? How, you know, what's here? How do you connect? We do have an opportunity with the I-25 bridge to do a secondary type gateway. We only have 2 signs along I-25 right now. And those have to stay in their locations where they are, and we can't add more of those. But we do have an opportunity to design things that could be applied to the bridge and engineer those so that they are robust and not, you know, a danger for folks. So yeah, each character area has a requisite number of signs in each category just to serve what's required. Okay, sorry. Next slide, please. So again, starting Labor Day, we're going to be out in the community in a couple of physical locations. We have these info stations that can be manned or not manned. We have several like events that we're going to piggyback on because fall is awesome for events, fun events. And so we'll be at the community market, the Labor Day festival, the community night in the park is very well attended as well. And then we're going to be at the Fort Carson Army Post, again, both at the commissary, and then they have it's sort of a combined, but the Fountain Youth Flag Football also includes some military folks. And then in October, we're going to be looking at attending some volleyball events and some walk-up info stations at like City Hall, the Peaks and Pines Brewery, etc. We basically called the places that we were for the initial thing and said, this is where we got the best input, and that's where we're going to be for these. And then in addition to that, we're going to have an online survey. So that survey will also launch on Monday, and that will allow people to, again, make those choices between the 2 designs, but also, you know, they have open fields where they can really write what they like about it. If there's anything about the one that they didn't pick that they'd like to see incorporated in, it's pretty open-ended and it's pretty thorough. And our hope is that we can get enough feedback to then move into final design with the same clarity that we entered into this design phase with. And that will allow us, again, it's very rarely like looks exactly like, unless there's a 90% majority that chooses one design option, we tend to tweak it based on the comments that we receive. So our hope would be that people would take the time to think about what they like and they don't like beyond just the binary choice of A or B. Oh, is there another slide? Okay, good. Sorry. So thank you, Nate, for putting together the presentation, though, because I really appreciated it. So anyway, we're very grateful to be here. 1, because we're at an important point in the project where we're pivoting. 2, because you are a consistent voice for us. It's really nice to be able to get your feedback in real time. So any questions you have, we would be happy to answer them and then think about how we incorporate them into this second stage of the project.
Okay, and just to tell you, Fountain Mesa is in the city and out of the city and in the city and out of the city and in the city and.
I know. I know. We're going to
So it's
claim
not
a
just,
lot of
not
it,
just
though.
you. Yeah, it seems to, we have several streets like that around here, right?
Yeah, for real.
Okay. All righty. Any questions from anybody up here? Comments from staff? Just a question for me. How are you
Yeah.
going to differentiate how the two surveys look? Because a lot of times people will look at, a survey and say, I just took that one a few months ago. I don't, delete it,
Oh.
you know?
Oh.
So how is the look of the survey going to be different?
Well, we start straight out with like big graphics of the design options at the top. Like you can't miss it. That's pretty much like what we're doing. Here's the two options. Then we go through each in like a larger graphic where we say, what do you like about this? It sounds so basic, but what do you like about this? What do you not like about this? And then you go through that for both design options, and then at the end, you cast your vote.
Right.
It's
okay.
simple
And how you
and
can even
quick.
get them to want to open that link or open
Yeah.
that email? How is, because I really thought your graphics were cool on the first one, but they need to, I don't know. I know when we did the two surveys a couple years ago on PPRTA and the public safety thing, I don't know which one went first, but the second survey, I think we got less replies back because people were thinking it was the same survey again.
They do. And our first survey was really robust. Let's call it robust. We definitely heard some feedback of like, it's a really long survey. And I do these projects all over, so I really put that into my think tank of like maybe less questions, fewer questions. I want to know the answers to everything, but people don't want to take a 10-minute survey, good grief. So this one is going to be very simple and direct.
Go ahead, finish. I just want to interject there for a second.
No, I was like, awesome. Okay. This is the fun part of the project. Both the graphics and the survey are very simple. At a minimum, we can stand at a place and ask people, and I do this, just to put a dot on the one you like the best. Like, it's literally me chasing them saying, here's a dot, like, pick the one that you like. And most people will do that, especially if you're barking to them. But the survey is the same. It's just quick and it's so fast. It's like a 3-minute survey, even if you share your comments. And it's a 2-second survey if you just look at it and say, this is one I like the best, and vote. So we usually get a much higher number of respondents to this survey. One, because people in Fountain and everywhere deeply care about design. Even if they don't say they're designers, they have an eye for what resonates. So they want to express that opinion. And also, we're not asking them open-ended questions. We're just like, pick one. So we had 100 respondents, plus a little bit, on the first survey. And my goal is to at least triple that for this final survey.
Okay, Kimberly?
Just also adding a little clarification. So just give a perspective in time. During COVID, surveys were the way to communicate with the public. They were very engaging platforms. Post-COVID, you can hardly get people to dribble into the survey. So as she opened with, she showed you over 500 personal touch points.
Right.
That is the campaign, is in the field, personally engaging with the public at the school district volleyball game or up there in the Veterans Affairs location, things that will congregate people. And as she just alluded to, it's a physical poster board that you apply your vote to, your buttons to. So please dismiss the word of a survey and be really more pertinent on the larger in the field, in the game output and engagement process. That's what really gravitates here.
And Kimberly, if everybody gets like really set, like 75% would pick one design, right? Are we going to come back with costs of different variations of that design? I mean, when we did the signs previously, the original design, we wanted metal legs on all the signs, right? It was very cost prohibitive, so we ended up going with the wooden legs. Are we going to get options like that when we come back?
Yes, we will get a variety of options. That will be phase 3, that you
Okay.
will start to see that. And
Okay.
there will be an implementation phased approach to the investment of what is critical needs for directional navigation, what is tertiary or secondary needs, and then how do we work with our reciprocal agencies, and one of those is El Paso County Parks. So El Paso County Parks, to this point, has been very engaged with us because we have one of their largest assets in our valley, Fountain Regional Park. And they have admittedly said it is oversaturated, and we need you to educate the public as to what are your other parks that can be equally pleasant and an amenity and alleviate some of that congestion burden of that one mass park. So El Paso County Parks has been very engaged through this process with us.
That's good to know. Thank you.
I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to comment on. Are you okay?
No, you did
Okay.
a good job.
Any
I mean,
questions?
the adaptability piece at the end, as we do rough cost estimates on the preliminary designs as well. But once we get into that final design and we can tweak it, there's a lot of nuance that we can build in that will look very much the same for the public, but we can go to those more affordable materials in areas where, you're just along 85, there's beautiful stuff to see on either side, but nothing to stop and experience. And, those can look the same, but be much more inexpensive in regard to materiality.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions or comments?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, we're
Please
gonna
take the survey.
If you could turn that mic, okay, never mind. 4.2, after that, I'm gonna let everybody know, we're gonna take a quick break for about 3 to 5 minutes after 4.2, since it is about 7:20. So if anybody needs a comfort break, that would be your spot to make a break. Alrighty, 4.2, Board, Commission, and Committee. Appoint one regular member to the Planning Commission, Ms. Martinez.
Good evening. Before you is the application for Mr. Ryan, I'm going to butcher his name, Facklum. He would be filling our last regular member vacancy on Planning Commission. We still have 2 alternate seats. He is filling the vacant seat vacated by Mr. Brent Johnson, whose term expired in September of 2022. This position would be for the full 4-year term and would expire in August of 2028. And he is here tonight if you have any questions for him.
Oh, great, Mr. Ryan, if you could come down. Like I said, I don't want to kill your name either, so thank you very much. Hi, thank you so much for filling out the application and volunteering to be on the Planning Commission. Really appreciate it. Do you have any questions for us, or?
Well, I'd like to know more about it. She's super busy. I've come down here and I'd like to help out. Basically, I'd like to help out as much as possible, so I'd like to know more about it and how can I interject and help the citizens of Fountain.
Okay, fantastic. Yep, they'll have an onboarding, if we approve you tonight, they have an onboarding meeting that they'll
There's
go
an
through
orientation.
with, an orientation, and make sure that you know everything that's going on and what your responsibilities are and all that kind of stuff. And, yeah, you guys are your eyes and ears out in the community, so we need all the help. So thank you very much, I really appreciate it.
We'd
And
be
I
happy to
believe I saw some
recommend a
military-
councilman who spent many years on Planning Commission, too, that could help as well.
Yeah.
Yes, if you want, I'll be happy to get with you after the meeting and we can set up an appointment. Also, that tanned gentleman in the nice shirt over there, he's on the Planning Commission also. You can talk to him and he can give you more current information than I have. But yes, we'd be glad to talk to you.
And I saw some military service in here, so thank you very much. And you're freshly retired, huh?
This Saturday.
Oh, okay. Not quite, huh?
Thank you. Trying to keep myself busy.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you wouldn't want to be bored after you get out of the military, right? All right, thank you very much. So that is on the recommendation for appoint one regular member of the Planning Commission. What would council like to do? Councilmember Hinton?
I make a motion to appoint one regular member to the Planning Commission.
Councilmember Estes?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Ryan to the Planning Commission. And any further deliberation up here? Seeing none, please vote.
Councilmember Hertzberg, how do you vote?
Yes.
I have 6 yes, motion carried.
All right, congratulations and thank you very much. All right, and we are going to take a short break right now because it's 7:21 and we've been at this for quite a while here. So thank you very much. We'll be back at 7:25. Is that okay, everybody? Please.
Bunny ears back here?
No, no bunny ears. And Mr. Councilmember Applegate? Is he in the lobby talking to somebody, or? All right, we'll give him another minute to get back. Oh, Scott's not back either.
We can roll.
We can.
We're good.
All right. All right, if somebody could grab Councilmember Applegate, I do see him on his phone back there. It's just straight back. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and start with correspondence, comments, and ex officio reports. We can come back to Mr. Trainer when he gets back in the room, so go ahead, Todd.
I'd be happy to speak for him. Neither of us have anything. Yes.
Troy?
And Mayor, the only thing I would be requesting an executive session tonight, but that's all that I had tonight.
Oh, good luck getting it. No, I'm kidding. All righty. Either one of the chiefs.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. Good to see everybody. Just two quick things. One, I am proud to report once again that we are fully staffed at the FD. We brought on a paramedic firefighter recruit within the last couple of weeks, so that puts our staffing at 51 total FTEs, and so we are fully staffed. The other thing I wanted to make a comment about is something that I received a couple of questions about the last few days, and that's a post that we put out on our Facebook page regarding an upcoming community survey that we want to do. This is related to something that I've had the time to dig into recently, and that's the department's strategic plan. And that's something that we need to spend some time and some effort on focusing on. There is a strategic plan within the department, but it's several years old, needs to be retooled and updated. The citizen survey that we want to send out is related to what's a document or methodology that's referred to as a CRASOC, which stands for Community Risk Assessment Standard of Cover. And in its most simplistic explanation that I can offer for that, it is a risk versus capabilities assessment. What sort of risks do we have in the community? And we can all automatically think fire department, we have fires. Yes, we do, but there's also other risks in the community. What are those risks? Truly, what are those risks? And what are our capabilities to address those risks? How do we bring those two together and resolve them in a plan moving forward, which helps drive our strategic plan? So the community survey is a small portion of a CRASOC. A CRASOC is generally 200 plus pages for an agency our size, and obviously much larger document for agencies larger than us. So this is just a small portion of it, but a very integral, important part of the CRASOC in our evaluation. And so we just wanted to get the word out to the community that this would be forthcoming, give everybody a heads up. Unfortunately, my intention was to brief the council on this in my department report that was scheduled for July that got kicked until September. And so you'll be getting a little more comprehensive briefing on it on September 10th, either in the work session prior, but then also as a regular item on the agenda. So if there's any questions, I just wanted to put that out there, kind of a 30,000-foot view of what that post was all about.
Okay, and the survey, will it be not only on Facebook, I assume, right, but on our city website? That's correct, and the survey itself is actually facilitated by a third party, by the Center for Public Safety Excellence, CPSE, and they are kind of the godfathers of CRASOCs. In fact, they have what's referred to as a CRASOC University, where actually one of our personnel was attending that methodology class on how to perfect getting this CRASOC done. So it is being administered, being built by third party, and then we can send it out to the community however we want, social media and websites. So to answer your question directly, yes, we'll have several different avenues for our community to respond to that survey. So we just heard from the previous group that surveys were kind of online were it for during COVID. Right now, people are wanting a little bit more one-on-one interaction. Can we kind of have some thoughts about that too, maybe?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And we are having discussions about that, how we address that, more of the personal interaction. And I think we've got some ideas that'll work for that.
Well, you get attention if you just bring your car with you, your big red car.
Big red
You
truck,
Get a lot of
BRT.
attention, yeah. Yeah. So, okay, and especially if you had a dog do it, it really helps things, right? Other chief.
Other chief might loan Holt.
Other chief might loan you a dog. They got a good one, yeah, okay. I don't think you're on.
Sorry, what?
Thank you.
It's not staying on.
There you go. There's a
Okay.
hint. Okay.
Good evening. Just a couple of quick things. Fall Festival's coming up Monday. Fully staffed for the police department, ready for that. Just remind citizens to be careful. Traffic, probably from about 8 o'clock, the lines start forming in sidewalks, and it'll run through the afternoon at Metcalf Park. So everybody just be mindful of all the people walking around town. We had a corporal promotion today. Craig Morris will be our new corporal for the school resource unit, so we're proud to have that promotion coming up here pretty soon. We had a good process today. PPIR event went very well last weekend. For the 3 or 4 days it went on, we had virtually no events as far as police or fire were concerned. And last thing, Commander Racine, along with the courts and our records division, all met together to start streamlining some processes with the courts and our ticketing, and it's all better to serve the citizens in a more rapid fashion. So we're kind of up on our game on that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Christy, anything else?
I think I spoke a lot tonight, so I have nothing else, but if you know anyone who's got a background in planning, then we have vacancies.
There you go. All right, best advertising. Scott?
I just have two things I want to mention, Madam Mayor. Real quickly, the staff has been hot and heavy in the middle of the budget process, developing the budgets based on the council's strategic objectives. We are looking at the end of September, and we'll be sending some dates to the council, end of September, beginning of October, to start having some public meetings on the budget. Next thing I want to mention, and this is in lieu of John Trilch not be able to be here tonight. As the council knows, he's really worked hard with Fort Carson and other military partners on creating those partnerships, establishing them, strengthening them. In particular, the IGZAs that we've established with our military partners. I think right now, he indicated, I think we have 4 or 5 major projects going on. They've had such success at the garrison that they're now requesting that we expand that by 25 more projects in the next month, because they're trying to get their funds spent, or at least authorized, set aside before the end of the federal fiscal year. But I think they've also had some personnel changes. They've seen some real successes on their end with our IGZAs and the cost that it's saving them, and the time. Time's a big thing to them. And so we are looking at being slammed by IGZAs over the next month. So John's working on that. He'll be meeting with them. I'm not sure if it was today or tomorrow, but he's continuing to move forward. That's been a huge success for us.
I know one of the things that when we first started doing the IGZA program, we just said, we're going to go to the IGZAs and see how it works out. At some point, we might need a staff person to cover that, but the IGZAs had to cover the salary and, it had to pay for its way, right?
Yep, that's right.
And we've kind of been at that tipping point for a while now where we think it's going to pay its way and then something doesn't go through. And so where do you think we're kind of getting on that?
We're actually to the point where the council approved hiring a new position when we had those
Right.
funds, and we're to the point where we're going to be looking at doing that.
Okay.
Because it'll be far beyond the revenues needed
Right.
coming in will be far beyond, number one, our capacity to handle that workload with what we have today, but the revenues will handle all the costs as well.
And there's other things that person can do.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, although that person will have a big focus on the IGZAs,
Right.
just the nature of that work will allow that position also to be our contracting officer. So we have a real need to get a stronger kind of focus on contracts and how we do those citywide. And so they'll be helping all the departments on our contracts and staying up on those and reviewing them, establishing them. And that includes, when I say contracts, it includes RFPs, those sorts of things as well. So there's a lot that person will be able to do.
Request for proposals, RFP.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anybody else on staff, IT,
Nothing tonight, ma'am.
city clerk's office?
Nothing additional, thank you.
Okay, all righty, I'll start to my left here. Councilmember Rick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To echo Chief Christiani's comments, Fall Festival will be next Monday, so please come out and have a good time. Want to talk about the hailstorm that came through, and I specifically want to thank the engineering staff and streets. Last time we had a big storm like that come through, we had a lot of damage. Streets were overflowing. A link at CNS was impassable for a while because there was so much flooding. We had cars that were swept off the road into ditches. We did not have that this time. I was out as soon as the storm was over, and for the most part, our systems worked. The areas that were dug out and cleaned out stayed cleaned out, and we had some good water flow and not so much damage. So thanks the staff for that. And then Chief Christiani, when you get a chance, I need to talk to you about homeless surveys. If you get a chance tomorrow or the next day, please give me a call. Yes, sir. That's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Applegate.
I attended Tessa's Pasta in the Park Saturday. Great organization, good event. Saw some familiar faces there. And I mean, by far, Fort Carson probably had the best pasta, so their sharp program was there, and they had made a pretty good one. There was also an Irish bar, had it was like a chili mac one or something. So, but look forward to seeing everyone at the parade and at the park Monday.
Councilmember Estes.
Nothing this evening.
Councilmember Hinton.
Just as a public service announcement, I know that we had the hail, they're out there, so just remind citizens they're calling, the roofers are visiting, the whole 9 yards, so just be careful who you get in business with, because they come to my house, they call me, and I had somebody today, they came by the house, and I have a sign in my yard, and so trying to prevent that. But also want to give a shout out to Fountain PD. I got a nice note, and you should have received it from a citizen. At 2 a.m. in the morning, their garage is opened, and the officer stopped by and just knocked on that door and said, hey, did you know your garage door was open? And they really appreciate that. They also want to think about to our transportation on the Mesa. The road is really smooth. They really like that. So it was a lot of good kudos. Oftentimes I don't hear a lot of good things that people have to say about the city, but this was a welcome present to hear that and what they had to say. So I really appreciate that. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. I really appreciate everything everybody's doing, and before I get started, I don't want to forget Councilmember Hersberg online. Councilmember Hersberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to mention I was at the Pikes Peak Regional Air Show all weekend, both days. It was really hot. A lot of folks were tragically unprepared for the heat. And I read that there were over 100 people that were treated for heat-related illnesses, 10 transported by ambulance, and I did read that Fountain assisted with our ambulance services. So a big thank you and recognition out to Fountain for helping Colorado Springs out with that. And just having said that, it looks like the weather for the festival is going to be a bit cooler than it was for the air show, but nonetheless, just be mindful of preparing for the heat. For yourselves, hydrate, bring sunscreen, maybe an umbrella, and also if you've got pets, let's be mindful of their little feet. So that was it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Just a bunch of stuff going on. Went to the Old Town Networking Group with some people at Peaks and Pines. They're great hosts, and that was a good event. It's always good to see businesses out and about. And Scott and Troy, we had our, I'm forming with some other mayors, a Pikes Peak Mayor's Caucus, so we can get some voices in this community. And Scott, you wrote up the MOU. The decision of the group was to send it back and have every city run it through their attorneys. So I'm going to be forwarding that to Troy, and we, make sure we're doing everything legal and up and up. So they would like answers back by September 6th. They would like answers back by September 6th, legal review. So, okay, we're just trying to keep it moving forward and some fast turnaround. So, We're trying to get it so that when the legislative session goes back in, we're prepared. Speaking of the legislative session, I think they had 12 or 15 bills, Scott, was it, that people brought forward. They've pretty much gotten rid of all but 2 or 3 of them in the special session they're in right now. The special session is essentially 3 days. They do, and costs a lot of money. So if you are super irritated at your legislature being in session at hundreds of thousands of dollars per day to have them all back up there, it might be a nice time to send some of them an email and say, let's take care of business on the 5 months that you're up there and not have to have another special session again next year. So we will see what happens with that, because you can't even, in 3 days, you can't even get a time to review the bill and look at it and see the amendments that they're offering and get anything up there. So that's really frustrating, but trying to stay on top of that as best as we can. And that takes us on to the next item. Public to be heard. Citizens may address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Council may not be able to provide an immediate answer, but will direct staff to follow up. Out of respect for the council and others in attendance, please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. I do have 3 cards, so if anybody else wanted to speak tonight, you can grab a card at the back and fill it out really quick and give it to Christy, and she'll pass it up. And we'll get you up here, but right now I just have 3 cards. And the first one I have is from John Langley from American Legion.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. John Langley, American Legion Commander. Just want to let you know a couple of things that we have going on in the near future. So this Friday, our scouts are going to be having a slopper dinner that they're going to have there with French fries. So the scouts get out there, cook the hamburgers, cook the French fries, put the green chili over the top, and that's one of their ways that they help raise money for their troop. We're ready to be at the parade in Metcalf Park on Monday. And afterwards, we're going to be having free hamburgers and hot dogs at the Legion. So if anybody wants to come over and get a free hamburger or hot dog, come on over to Post 38. Our auxiliary has a coat drive that's going on right now, so they're taking new and gently used coats. The gently used coats will usually go to the homeless, but the new ones, we're trying to get coats for kids in school age. September the 11th is going to be the auxiliary's chicken fried chicken dinner. They are going to be offering a discount to first responders and active duty members there, so they'll get a little off there. Sorry, on the 13th, it's not September 11th, but in recognition of September 11th, okay. All right. And, but September 20th is POW MIA Day, and we're going to be celebrating that at the American Legion. And for that dinner, we're going to have a fish fry, French fries, and coleslaw. And I'd be remiss but not saying our golf tournament's still going on September 30th. We still have a couple of openings left for people to come play as a team. And then I'm doing some really big advertising right now because I want this to be the best one yet. But October 25th, we're doing our Oktoberfest, where we'll be having Jaeger Schnitzel, Spätzle, and German potato salad. And Wackadoo Brewery is going to be coming in over there, and they are going to be doing 4 or 5 German-style beers there. So we'll have polka music playing. We'll have the back hall set up as almost like a fest tent, and hope to have everybody come on out. Thank you.
Right, hopefully the polka music won't be as loud as some of the new theater up north.
You won't have neighbors complaining.
All right. Mr. Hinton.
You had me at Schnitzel, so.
All righty. All righty. Aaron Hines, VFW. Did he have to? Oh, there you are. You moved. Okay.
Morning, Councilman, Madam Mayor. Aaron Himes, VFW Commander. Want to kind of echo what John said. We'll be supporting the parade on Monday. We will have a booth set up at the Fall Festival as well, doing a membership drive, and then also focusing on getting people down to the other event we have going that day, which is the Veteran Resource Fair from 12 to 5. down at the VFW. We have about 16 organizations that support veterans, ranging from organizations that provide shelter and housing, all the way through service animals and college education counselors being out there. We also have service officers on site to start veteran benefits for those that are looking for VA assistance. On the 7th, we have two big events going. We have our Wounded Warrior 5K. We have registration down at the post from 6 to 8 a.m. And then we'll follow that off with our chili cook-off that's hosted by the O'Brien home team down at our post, with the proceeds being donated to the VFW. They are raffling a car off that day, and so tickets are $10. If you have a teenage driver that needs a car, you know, no better opportunity. On the 14th, we have Austin Ross live band from 6 to 10, but we also have an event that our auxiliary is putting on for families to really get out and do a kind of a date night. They're calling it a mom prom, so a flashback to 80s and 90s. Some are going further back in the 70s with some Austin Powers suits, and they are going to give out awards similar to what you see in a yearbook for best dressed, most likely to succeed, etc. On the 19th and 21st, our post will be providing a color guard in conjunction with VFW District 5 for Honor Flight leaving the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame. Those of you not familiar with Honor Flight, they take veterans from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, back to DC for 3 days to tour the monuments back there, see everything that they sacrificed for. And then on the 28th, we're doing a flag retirement ceremony at the post. Unfortunately, we're one of the few posts that does flag retirements along with 38. So everybody from the Springs brings their flags to us. So Fox 21 just dropped off about 4,000 flags that we'll go ahead and retire. And simultaneous with that, our auxiliary is going to be doing a children's patriotic art, really focusing on that Americanism, getting the kids out there. So we'll have the Scouts and Civil Air Patrol helping us with the flag retirement, and then the younger kids inside doing some activities with the auxiliary. Really, the only last two things I just want to hit that we do have our scholarships active right now. So Voice of Democracy and Patriots Pen have been distributed out to all the local schools and online, as well as the Teacher of the Year application. So if you have students in middle school or high school, or you have a child in any grade and they have a teacher they like, come down, see us, submit an application form or a submission form, and let's get them recognized. And that's all I have. Any questions?
No, thank you very much. But with 4,000 flags, I think we might have to get our fire chief involved over there, and
we obviously clear all that with the fire department
Just
before
kidding.
we do it.
They could have a lot of fun with that all at once, huh, Chief?
Yeah.
Can make a training day out of it or something.
There we go.
All right, thank you so much for both of you and everything you're doing. And I think it's kind of really nice, all the things I know you guys kind of did it accidentally on Memorial Day, but to me, I think it's really nice. We've got people that they can go to Dollar for Scholars breakfast, they can go down to the park and get lunch from a food truck, they can go down to Legion and have dinner with you. So you don't have to cook on Monday if you don't want to. And I think there's also a car show going on from noon to 4 at the Western Omelet, I believe. So, yeah. So
Did forget one thing on Monday. We also have free haircuts from Sport Clips down at the VFW. So if you need a haircut, come down and get one for free.
All right,
All
there you go.
donations from that are going to go to the Wounded Warrior.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. What time is that?
From 12 to 5.
12 to 5. All right. Haircut and then a hamburger, or which way? Which depends on how way you want your picture taken or not, huh? Okay. The last card I have, unless anybody else has turned one in, is from Destiny Angel. And please come down and state your name for the record. Hang on. Okay. The clock's reset. Okay. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Destiny Angel. It's good to see everybody. Thank you for having me this evening. I am here to do another follow-up and shine some light and tell my truths. These are my truths, my things that had happened to me here in this town. And there are positives and there are negatives. And I'm going to start with the negatives and get that out of the way, just so everybody has a good understanding of where I come from and how far I've grown. Last year, around this time, around this month, on August 3rd, there was a restitution hearing where I was supposed to be in this room to collect restitution from my daughter, who, as we know, was assaulted at the high school. And while picking my daughter up at the high school, a young lady that was also in a fight that day had walked up to me, and I said, "What are you in for?" And she walks up and she said, "Oh, because I come up," and she shoved me with her 2 fingers. And I said, "Don't you put your hands on me." And this is the lack of boundaries that people do not have. Like, these children do not have boundaries, and they think that they could just do whatever they want. And in this sense, the young lady that attacked my daughter, which was an old BFF, a best friend of hers, her mother actually gave her consent to do that. I don't know if I made that aware to council, but her mother had actually given her consent to attack my daughter 10 minutes prior to that. So this was a premeditated assault. And it was charged as assault, and then it was reduced to harassment, which I do not believe that assault and harassment are equivalent in no manner, in no way. And I would like to see proof. I would like to see some literature that supports that. Aside from that, I come in here and had courts and restitution hearings, and a 5-hour restitution hearing where harassment had happened inside of this building, which I had already made that known and clear. And while trying to stand up and advocate for my daughter and say, "Hey, stop this here right now, in this room," I was told to sit down, and or I was going to be escorted outside of this room. Do not stand up and do not approach the prosecutor. The prosecutor that was representing my daughter as a victim. And little did I know that this prosecutor had told these false lies and allegations against me and said that I had threatened to attack her or assault her, her quote unquote is that I threatened to punch her several times in the back of the head, which was the exact crime that was done to my daughter. And I had asked why nobody was arrested. And nobody was arrested for that. And apparently it is a crime to make a threat, because she very well went to the city of Colorado Springs and got a restraining order on me based off those lies and allegations. That's a problem. And the problem being is that I got no justice in none of that. I didn't get any kind of adjudication. Nothing, no good positive came out of this, and I'm concerned. And so when I come up here, as vulnerable as this is, and I've spoke to several people, handful of people in this room of a great importance that I would think are of high integrity and a high honor, that would be able to help me find a better solution. And when I gave solutions, my solutions, it seemed like y'all had problems for my solutions. And that's not okay by me. I'm still here wanting the same justice and didn't seek it, and dealing with people, and I'm a native. Like, it's not like I could just leave. People that do these crimes, they could just up and leave and go back home wherever they go. This is my home. This is my ground. I was born here. I am a native. I'm not going anywhere. So for anybody thinking they're going to run me off, and then for me to go to big heads, big people, and say, "Hey, what are you doing? What's going on here? Let's stop this. This is not okay." It's not. You can not like me if you don't want to. I'm okay with that. But to be rude to me and to mistreat me and to attack me is not okay. And to attack my children is personal. It is an attack on me. And I'm saying this is not okay. And I had wanted help and support, and I came over here like, anybody gonna help me? Nobody. Nobody is gonna help me. I'm helping myself by speaking my truth here today. And what I want from everybody here is to know the truth, and that there's a lot more to go behind that. But what I needed was support. And this room failed me. The system failed me, and I don't want that for another person. I don't want that for another teen. I don't want that for another single mother. And I want to be the voice of that and say, "Hey, stop that." Prior to that ever happening, I tried to create something beautiful like that Zen room that would create that positivity and that would allow these kids to step away from thinking violently or doing criminal activity, which would give them a Thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for turning that back on. I appreciate that.
And I'd like to restate again, your issue, the event that happened was at D8. So your remedy is at D8, you need to go to their school board, and you need to go to their school board members. If you're not happy with the ruling that came out of our court, then your next place is to go to county court, and you can file an appeal there, and that is the way that it works. We are a legislative body, the branch. We have 3 branches of government. We're the legislative. We have and this other branch is judicial, and they have to stay separate. I think if you watch the national news, you got people stepping on each other's toes, and we are not going to do that in this city. And so your remedy for anything through the courts is through the county courts if you're not happy with what goes down here, and with the school district for things that go on in the school district. So thank you very much for coming in, though, and sharing your thoughts again today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't have any other cards. That's my last card from public to be heard. So that takes us on the consent agenda, item 7. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be approved with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately at the discretion of council. We have items A and B under the consent agenda. And what would council like? Councilmember Rick.
Move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Councilmember Estes?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, deliberation? Seeing none, please vote.
Councilmember Hertzberg, how do you vote?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carried.
Okay, that takes us on to item 8, old business. There is no old business tonight. Takes us on to item 9, new business. 9A, consideration of items removed from consent agenda. There were no items removed. Item 9B, first reading of ordinance 1801, an ordinance repealing and reordaining section 050, open carrying of firearms, of chapter 32, dangerous weapons, within title 9, public peace, morals, and welfare of the Fountain Municipal Code regarding firearms in the city facilities. I do want to make a note before we go on with this. That was put in, if you have an old agenda, as ordinance 1800. That was misnumbered. It's ordinance number 1801. Looks like instead of it being the Dan Blankenship show tonight, it is the Mr. Johnson show. All right, you got the next 3 things. All right.
I think so. Mayor, excuse me. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is an ordinance that is mostly the same as the emergency ordinance that the council passed on June 25th. And to refresh the council and the public's memory, the law changed in Colorado and prohibiting carrying firearms in public spaces, specifically what we're talking about, as it would apply to City Hall, both as a meeting space for the council and for court activity. Prior to that July 1st implementation, the council and that emergency ordinance opted out of the restrictions for the meeting of public officials, but could not opt out of the court requirements. And so this is an ordinance that is coming through the regular process instead of an emergency to adopt functionally the same thing. What this would do would be allow anybody to carry firearms within City Hall at any time other than when court is in session. So for example, this afternoon between 1 p.m. and probably about 3 p.m., we had some court activity, and during that time there were signs posted throughout the building that nobody could carry a firearm. Or tomorrow all day with court in session, there will be signs posted that you can't carry a firearm. One thing that I will note about this ordinance is that it does allow members of city staff to apply to be security personnel to carry a firearm during court hours in the building as well. And so there's a process that they'd go through the HR department and the city manager to get certified and qualified to carry as security personnel, to be exempted from that particular part of the ordinance. So with that, I'll leave it to any questions of the council.
Okay, and they would do that application, and then it would be approved by a case-by-case basis?
Case-by-case basis through the city manager. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Is there any discussion from council up here on this ordinance? Are there any questions or comments? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Hertzberg?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, is there any questions or comments from anyone in the audience? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back up to the dais. What would council like to do? Councilmember Applegate?
Would you like to would you like to have me make a motion for this ordinance?
Yes, please.
All righty. Do you want me to read the whole thing in its entirety?
No, you can just
or
read the proposed motion
Just the
down at the
proposal,
bottom,
okay, just the proposal. So I propose ordinance number 1801, an ordinance repealing and reordaining section 050, open carrying of firearms of chapter 32, dangerous weapons within title of Fountain Municipal Code regarding firearms in the city of Fountain facilities.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Councilmember Hinton?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on ordinance 1801. Is there any further deliberation from council? Seeing none, please vote.
Councilmember Hertzberg, how do you vote?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carried.
Okay. All right, so the next two items are discussion items only. We will not be passing anything tonight. This, like I said, they are just discussion items of potential action that would happen at a further meeting. That takes us on to item 9C, discussion on regulating harm reduction uses. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Like the Mayor said, I think this is one that has what I might call some broad political implications. Talking specifically about what's defined as harm reduction uses for drug use. Specifically, the two that we're talking about is safe injection sites and a needle exchange programs. That there are ways in which to try to make people that struggle with substance use disorder to keep them safer while they're working through those particular issues. And two kind of controversial programs are those two that some cities around Colorado are seeing the creation of what they're calling safe injection sites that people can come in and use drugs with it being safe, without there being violence or other implications or other risks in doing so. Another program that you're seeing across the state are needle exchange programs, so that people can take their used needles, come to a place, a clinic, whatever you might call it, and get clean needles in exchange for dirty ones. The idea is that cuts down on the risk of infection, disease that spreads when these people might choose to use dirty needles, and the risks that come along with that. But I think there's some obvious drawbacks for programs like this because it can be seen also as encouraging the use. And so I think in my discussions with council has been that I think this is a policy question for the safety and welfare of our community. I think the council's in a good position to understand our community and what our needs are. And so what I've drafted up, and you can see it, and that's what is an opportunity for us to discuss tonight, is if as a community, those are programs that we want to allow. For the most part, those aren't government run programs. Those are private nonprofit programs usually. But as a community, as a city, do we want to allow those types of programs? And so I've drafted up an ordinance that would prohibit those uses and those programs in our city. But ultimately, it's obviously the council's decision, and I'm here to help the discussion in any way I can.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're here because of a law that the state passed a couple years ago, right? Essentially changing it so that they didn't have to come in and apply to the city and have those discussions, right?
Yeah, I think that, there's still a level of business compliance like anyone else would have to.
Right, no, but your write-up of the CRS says they can come in without municipal approval.
Right, for
Right.
that specific use, that's correct. And so this ordinance would require that approval, and really it would be a prohibition.
Okay, Councilmember Hinton?
Yeah, as we're discussing this, I'd like to hear from both chiefs, your discussion topics on these as far as it pertains to public safety.
Okay, let's hang on just a second and see if there's any other council members.
For sure.
Okay, is there any comments? Councilmember Applegate?
My only real comment is with everything with Fort Carson being right there to our west, I think this town has always had the thought of, let's not put any drugs or anything like that any closer to these soldiers. I mean, that's the reason why we don't have recreational marijuana in Fountain. That's the reason we don't have medicinal marijuana in Fountain. We don't want it right at the doorstep of Fort Carson. Our men and women that serve, they need to stay sober, and that's always an important thing we've looked at, I think, in this community.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Hinton?
I'd also say we don't want it at the doorsteps of our citizens here in Fountain. I mean, I appreciate the military as well. I'm a retired veteran, but I don't want it here in Fountain as well, around our kids, around our community. So, yeah, that's just my 2 cents too.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Estes or Rick?
As somebody who struggled with alcohol addiction when I was young, and as someone who has had family members struggle with drug addiction, I'm a hard no on needle exchange or safe injection sites. I think we want to make it clear to everyone that we do not support these activities. If you need rehabilitative help, if you need counseling, I think we should support that, but these are not measures that are going to help people overcome their addictions. So I'm a hard no on that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I agree with Councilmember Rick. I'm all for getting rehabilitation and that kind of services here, but to keep condoning the use, no.
Okay. Councilmember Hinton, Hersberg, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, my thoughts are pretty much in alignment with what's already been stated. I'm just very concerned about the health and safety of our community. And when I think of programs that help with addiction, I would be more in favor of something that was facilitated and controlled, not out on the streets.
Okay. I took some time and reached out to someone who works in the industry. Is it an industry? Deals with some of the problems that come with this. And so some of their comments to me were a lot of reasons that they use this is to prevent the spread of disease. He didn't think that was, while it does help, he doesn't think that argument is as strong as it used to be, because so many people are using other ways to use drugs, pipes and other ways to, and he also was saying that there's a very low transfer rate over people who are going into these places, and single digits, he said, of people that go in and they say, I'm exchanging my needles, oh my goodness, I'm a drug addict, I need help. He said people going in and requesting that from those places is very, very low. They're mostly just going in, and he also said they don't require one-on-one needle exchanges. So you can go in and just request 20 needles and not have to turn any in. And then you have the disposal project. So he just doesn't believe the data that says it's one-on-one, it's not true. And gave me a statistic. He said, for example, the number of needles people might need if you want them to use a clean needle every time. If people are shooting up with meth, they are shooting up every 2 hours, and in some cases. And that was way more than I was ever anticipating for that. So he said there's a philosophy, and he said the philosophy you need to think is what are we incentivizing in our community? So that's a philosophy you have to look at. I thought that was just really interesting, because I really wanted to hear from somebody who is directly dealing with people who are living in that world, and some of the issues and things that are going on with that. So unless Councilmember Hersberg or anybody has anything else, I'll turn it over to the chiefs to hear what you guys are also seeing on the front lines.
Yeah, all personal opinions aside, from a law enforcement standpoint, a safe injection site or needle exchange implies the safety is guaranteed for that individual. And as a police department, we could not guarantee the safety knowing that illegal drugs and use of drugs are taking place in a particular area. And I know I could guarantee with almost 100% certainty that crimes would be afoot in those areas, knowing that drugs are coming in and robberies, the things we see on our streets every day would just be exaggerated if we knew where those folks were going to be going to use their drugs. And that's just from a crime standpoint. And Fire Chief could speak on just the medical side of that.
Madam Mayor, Council, I think, again, putting personal opinions aside, obviously this is a philosophical debate for you guys to have. I don't know that one way or the other it would greatly impact our operations. The case could be made that for those that would use these locations, and they were to overdose, they would be in that location, we would know where to go find them. And I don't say that jokingly. But I also would say that, in my experience, 25 years in the EMS and fire world, there's not as many needles out there as there used to be because, Madam Mayor, as you spoke to, there's different methods of the drug administration and drug ingestion that's going on more so than it was 25 years ago with the heroin epidemic and the needles that were being used back then. That said, there's still plenty of needles being used and needles found in the riverbeds and those sorts of things. And then I'll step back into the personal opinion. I would certainly, support prohibition of this for my own personal opinion. I'm raising a family in the city of Fountain. I choose to be here with my young family, and so, I would support any direction that you go, but that would be my, personal position on it as well, because I think I have a dog in the fight from the personal side of the house, too.
Okay, thank you. Is there any comments from any other council members? Okay. So we're going to open it up to public and see if you can come down the microphone and state your name. This is a discussion, and so if you would have anything that you would like to say on this, please feel free to come on down. And state your name for the record, please.
Steve Arce. I think that there are some big components missing, and I certainly don't discredit your years of experience or yours.
Can I get you to speak towards the mic a little more?
Or
okay.
The individual that you spoke with. But I did a lit review myself because this came up on the agenda before and was postponed. There's about 40 years of solid empirical research that have been done. It's peer reviewed. And I'm talking Johns Hopkins, large medical establishments that have looked at harm reduction, which has a broad term. So I am glad that you are going to specifically look at only two components of harm reduction. But harm reduction overall, so we want to be very clear about what our terms are in this. But harm reduction has a very long established efficacy of actually working. And I get it. People don't want to sit there and say, well, I don't want to encourage the use of drugs. This is not what we're doing. That's not the point of harm reduction, right? It's not the point of harm reduction to encourage the continued use of this. The point of harm reduction is to try and get you to, at some point, change at least some of the lifestyle risks the at-risk behaviors. Harm reduction emphasizes engaging directly with people who use drugs to prevent overdose and infectious diseases. It's been shown consistently to save lives. And when we say this, we're talking about this. For instance, when you look at some of the actual numbers for it, in San Francisco alone, when they introduced needle exchange, specifically looking at not reducing whether or not people were using drugs, but whether or not people were going to die from HIV. Infection rates dropped significantly by over 40%. Okay? So Is there a benefit of it? Yes. Do I think that it is going to encourage further drug use? You know, one of the things that harm reduction has found specifically over the studies that have been done is that if people are going to use drugs, they're still going to use drugs, period, whether you offer a needle exchange or not. The purpose of offering the needle exchange is so that they don't also get hepatitis. Right? You know, all of these different medical things that turn around and look at, you know, again, not a question of are we encouraging drug use? That's not the point. That's not what we're trying to do. You know, I think everybody would be agreed that what we want to do is we want to save and protect lives, right? Correct? That's what we want for all of our citizens, okay? And so ultimately, I think what it's going to come down to is getting over this this narrowed look of glasses of just looking at, we're only going to look at whether or not we're encouraging drug use. That's not what we're talking about. And one of the things that disturbs me is, again, you know, not to diminish the decades of experience that you guys bring to the table, but I think in order to have a viable discussion like this, we're missing some subject matter experts. I get it, we're looking at, you know, we have a legal expert, we have a law enforcement expert, you know, we have an emergency services expert, you talked to a person involved in the field. Where are the other experts in harm reduction that can specifically cite some of the research that I've you know, just in a cursory glance looked at, that can sit there and say, yeah, if we're going to do it, we should do it in this way because it can be effective. It can be effective in preventing people from dying. Not necessarily because they are not going to stop using drugs. We may never get people to stop using drugs of one form or another, but if we can prevent them from dying from something else, that gives us a little bit more time to work on the other stuff. And so I think that's one of my biggest concerns during this discussion is I think we're missing some subject matter experts if we're going to have a good intellectual discussion that looks at the facts and the data and not just how we feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arce. Anyone else? All right. I am going to, I'm sorry, Mr. Hinton, go ahead.
No, I was just going to comment on Mr. Arce's comment. I appreciate him bringing the forward thought about this. You know, for me, as part of this discussion, I look at other things that have happened in other cities. You know, I think Seattle tried this. I think San Francisco has tried this, and it really hasn't panned out well for them. And so they've had to fight back to get their city back on when they done harm reduction and going in that way. I do appreciate your question and us looking at that. And I would encourage the council to continue to look forward and ways to have a greater discussion about this, to make sure that it's not just a personal feeling, because I have my personal feelings and for it or against it, but I really do appreciate you bringing that up. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Rick.
So I have a very good friend. He is the past president of the Sober Souls Motorcycle Club in Colorado Springs. And he himself was an addict, both alcohol and drugs. And he and I have had long discussions about addiction and how to deal with it, because he is on the front line. He is the guy that's going out there and talking to people with addiction issues and trying to help them. And the first thing he told me was, a person is not going to overcome addiction until they admit they have a problem. You can help them with money, you can help them with needles, you can help them with, I'm going to give you a place to live. But until they hit rock bottom, until they have nothing, and then they admit they've got a problem, nothing's going to work. And sometimes you have to be that voice that says, I can't help you until you admit you have a problem and you're going to do something about it. Allowing needle exchange and creating safe places isn't going to help somebody hit rock bottom. I respect your opinion. I understand where you're coming from. Based off of my personal experience and the experience that have been relayed to me by my friend, who's been in the addiction business for a while, I would just feel like I've got to go another way. But thank you for your comments.
I would like to respond to that.
If you could come back up, please, and we'll give you,
Much more briefly.
yes.
However,
He can have more than 6 seconds.
I don't know if I can be that brief. And I get it, but, you know, getting people to quit drugs, that's not the point of harm reduction. School lunches were a harm reduction program. And it wasn't to get people to eat more nutritious meals. That was hopefully a byproduct of it. But the deal was that kids were starving. Right? So harm reduction, and again, and I think that's the thing that needs to be the focus. Are we trying to come up with a way to regulate whether or not people quit using drugs, or are we trying to actually use harm reduction philosophy?
Thank you. That's why I asked it to be on a discussion item, right? Not just bring an ordinance up. Let's hear what our community thinks about this. A couple weeks, if people have thoughts and ideas about it. All our email addresses are out there, so please email us if you have any links or if you have any thoughts. We really want to hear from you, and I want to hear from both sides of the, don't assume that you know what we're thinking. Years ago, I had a friend who was a legislator up in Denver, and I assumed she would know how we would want her to vote on something. And she voted a different way. And she said, I didn't hear one word from any person at all. And so I made a commitment to her to always make sure that she knew where I stood. And so we don't know if you don't reach out to us, right? And so if you, I'm putting it out there, the bigger. And please state where you're from, and if you're just a citizen of the city of Fountain or not, if you write to us. So thank you very much. And thank you for your speaking up. Thank you. All right, that takes us on to the next one. Item 9D is another discussion item where action will be taken later. A discussion on establishing the city's position on migrant responses and status as a non-sanctuary city. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Similarly, this is sort of a political discussion, and it's a hot topic now recently with the news and things happening in our country. Realistically, I think there's not a huge impact by declaring ourselves a sanctuary city or a non-sanctuary city, but I think, but it's also important to sort of declare that federal law is important to our citizens here, and cooperation with the federal authorities is something that we support. That's what this resolution would declare. Really the impacts and the reason that you're seeing resolutions like this throughout the city, or I'm sorry, throughout the state, and honestly, in the opposite way, are for communication at the jails. That's primarily what declaring a sanctuary or non-sanctuary city means, is that if it's the local law enforcement's confinement facility communication with the federal government immigration. We don't have a jail here in the city of Fountain. We use El Paso County, and so if we, for instance, arrest somebody that happens to not be a legal citizen, we transport them to the jail, and they go through the process as anyone else does. Then it's the jail's decision whether or not to then cooperate with the federal authorities. And so we're kind of taken out of that equation in many cases. But it's also, a regional decision, as this resolution lays out, that we're declaring ourselves. We're not going to be a safe haven for those immigrants that choose to not do it lawfully. So with that, I will, happy to
Okay.
answer any questions or
Right.
if there's any discussion.
And I think this is a concern of people just in the entire region that we're hearing the discussion because of the neighbors to the north, big neighbors to the north, who declared themselves a sanctuary city. And there's over 40,000 people that have stayed there this year. And I think about half of, I don't know, is it 40,000 and half have moved on, or there's 40,000? Anyways, they've ended up having to cut regular services to everything in the city by 10% across the board to try to take care of things. And it's really, that's police department, public safety, parks, works, everything. And people are free to move around in America, right? We don't require a permit, and you can live wherever you want. And so we just know people are going to be moving around. So this is another discussion item. So I'm going to open up the council. What would you like to say on this? Councilmember Applegate.
I think that non-sanctuary status is important, because I think right now the federal government, they just, they don't care, and right now, and I think Denver's in lockstep. Denver has handed out $136 million in free healthcare. People that are never going to pay it back, they're not citizens of this country. And I think that alone is a reason it's like we don't want to cost our taxpayers anything more. We need to take care of our citizens. We need to, send the buses back, simply put. Colorado Springs should have done that from the first place.
All right, thank you. Any other council members? Need to hear from everybody. Councilmember Rick?
Yes, I am not in favor of using city resources to support migrants. We have enough needs in our city already. We lack the funds and resources to properly fix our roads. We have many other needs in the city. We're trying to build a fourth fire station. We're, making sure that we have ample recreation opportunities in this city. I don't want to spend those resources inviting migrants into the city. So I support a prohibition or making us a non-sanctuary city.
Councilmember Estes or Hinton?
Yeah, I support a non-sanctuary city, and the reason why I support a non-sanctuary city is, I asked the question, is it sustainable? Can we really put this burden on our citizens to be able to sustain those that are here in this country illegally? And I think that, for me, the answer is no, we can't. And so I'm in favor of supporting a non-sanctuary city.
Councilmember Estes and then Councilmember Hertzberg.
This is a complicated issue. I know that we are a country of immigrants. My family came here a long time ago, 500 years ago. Some of them came here 100 years ago. My thing is that this is a federal issue. I will not support any city funds going to support the immigrants before our citizens. The citizens of Fountain deserve us, just like we hold the developers accountable for supporting their new growth. We need to have that. But I am not supporting immigrants coming to here and on the backs of the people that are already here that are lacking their roads, they're lacking health care, they're lacking food, they're lacking shelter right here. So it's complicated. I don't know. I think it's throw your hands up in the air and say we're a non-sanctuary city. It's not going to do anything. It's throwing one drop in the big bucket of the ocean. And it's a nice gesture, and I agree with it, but it's not going to solve the problem. We have to we're contacting our congressmen, our senators, and saying, we need this fixed. We need to fix the immigration system in this country. We need to be on the state legislators and say, we need to work with the federal government to stop this and to get this back under control.
Thank you. Councilmember Hertzberg?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I mean, I'm going to echo a lot of what's already been said. I think just saying that you're a sanctuary city, in our case, is definitely being over-promising and over-committing and under executing. We don't have the resources for the problem that we have as far as homeless already. And to invite more into that would just be untenable. We couldn't do it. So whether it makes a huge difference or not, I think being upfront that says, hey, we don't have the resources to help in that way, and the people come here anyway, they're going to come here not expecting it because we've already said we don't have it. So I would be in support of the ordinance.
Thank you. And this is really very simple. I think, like Troy said, it's just sending a message to the jail that this is our status, and we're telling our citizens we're not going to be using resources for this. There's nonprofits out there that are working with the immigrants that are coming, and they are much better equipped to do it. And so I think that and I agree with everything that's been set up here. It is a federal issue. And we need to see some changes, and we will see what happens in November. But until then, we're left making statements that our federal government isn't. So I'm going to open it up to discussion from anybody in the audience here tonight. Doesn't mean you can't move here, like I said. Steve, you're just our number one. Come on down.
Steve R.C. You know, it is with a sad irony that a nation with its roots in immigrants who came to this land and of course started knocking people down and taking their stuff would be so divided at a national level as to how we regulate future inhabitants from possibly doing the same, or perhaps being the next Tesla or Einstein. But the reality is that at its core, this is a national issue. It's not going to be resolved. It's not going to be resolved by our states, by our cities. And the interesting thing is as I listen to this, it really you make it sound, and it almost perpetuates the guilt of this division as making it sound like we only have two choices. We're either a sanctuary city or we're not a sanctuary city. We don't have to declare either. There's a third option here, because, you know, as you've pointed out, we already know it's not going to make a difference. You know, it's just a gesture. And to be quite honest, I would call it something else other than a gesture. But I don't support having the status one way or the other. We don't need additional bureaucracy to tell law enforcement to tell laws that already exist. Dude, would you please go ahead and start enforcing laws that are already on the books? I'd really appreciate it. He already knows how to do that, right? Prosecutorial discretion already exists. It's been a thing for a long time. We already got that part figured out. This kind of grandstanding, to me, because that's what it is grandstanding, is more about local politicians making a political statement. We've already made our statement. It's right there on the wall, however you want to interpret it. Fountain, All-American City. Regardless of how you want to interpret that, whether or not you only get to be a citizen if we say so, or, hey, everybody gets here and gets a fair shake. Again, there's a broad spectrum here. But it's not, I think the real thing that is really kind of disturbing here is, as I listened to everybody else's discussion points and started making notes, we don't have just two choices. We really don't. We don't want to spend money on people coming into our community and doing stuff. Absolutely, I agree with that 100%. You're absolutely correct. There are plenty of nonprofits here, but we don't need to add to it. Really what I see, and I would urge us to not let scare tactics and incomplete information issued by YouTube media and guest speakers push us into a sky is falling mentality. That is not the kind of statement, political or otherwise, that we need to be known for. I think we should let cooler heads prevail. We do have a third option here, and that is very simple. We don't, our third option is we remain where we are, and we actually let the entities that do have control over this, we the people, write our congressmen, write our delegations. That's the avenue for this. And those of you that have heard from me before know that I write my I write my congressional individuals to the point to where I think they just throw me automatically into the, we don't want to read this pile anymore. But that's the reality of it, to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arce. Anyone else? Okay, this is a discussion item, so no decision will be made tonight. And once again, if you have any opinions on this, our emails are out there, so please email us and give us your opinions on this item. So with that, it takes us on to item 10. Are there any city council agenda requests? Seeing none. No, I'm kidding. It's getting late. Councilmember Hersberg, did you have anything?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, and we did have a request to go into executive session from our city attorney, and feel free to vote no. Oh, Troy, you got to tease you when you throw them on there at the last minute, right? All righty, and Councilmember Hersberg will not be able to participate in the
Nope, she can.
Oh, she can online. Okay, all right, she can. Okay, all righty. Okay, and so if you will go ahead and read that in the record, please.
In accordance with City Charter and the Colorado Open Meetings Act, the City Council open session is to determine whether it will hold a closed executive session. A closed executive session may be held upon an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the quorum present. If consent to the closed executive session is not given, the items may be discussed in open session or withdrawn from consideration. The purpose of tonight's executive session is pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-4024F for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in open session, any member of this body or any elected official, the appointment of any person to fill an office of this body or of an elected official, or personnel policies that do not require the discussion of matters personnel particular to employees. Mayor
Okay,
Thompson.
so we have a request from our city attorney. Our city clerk is ready in the record to go into executive session. Do we have a motion? Councilmember Estes.
Move to go into executive session.
Councilmember Rick.
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Councilmember Hersberg, how do you vote?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carried.
No. Just one no.
Oh, there's one no.
I apologize.
I get one no.
You get one no here.
I apologize.
I've been up since midnight.
Okay.
5 yes,
I always
1
say
no.
everybody gets-
Councilmember Hinton
Yeah.
voting no, motion carried.
Everybody can have one a year, just don't all do them on the same night, right? Figure it out ahead of time. So, all right, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Very good. You got your one in.
I got my one in.
huh?